If you don't know about flyer deals on Instacart, this message is for you. Flyer deals are like strolling through your favorite store looking for deals, but you're scrolling your phone, and maybe you're in bed. Because getting delivery doesn't mean you have to miss deals like you'd get at the store, like the one creamer that doesn't make your stomach hurt, or the pasta sauce you can't not buy when it's on sale. So download the Instacart app, shop flyers, and never miss a deal on one of your favorites. Plus, get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes.
Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Waiting to rise again.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Quirks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the moment you've all been waiting for.
Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Off and running, hour number 2 of The Hunt Palmer Show. Musso filling in for Hunt as he takes Memorial Day weekend up in Shreveport. Jordan Kitchens, Cassie Spazzali along for the ride, and glad you are as well. LSU and Texas A&M tonight from the Hoover Met. It'll be the Aggies' third game. It will be the Tigers' first in this new single elimination 16-team format. For a better look at the Aggies and where they stand after those two games, we go to TexAgs.com and Ryan Brawninger. You can get him on Twitter or X at @R_Brawninger. Ryan, we appreciate you taking the time, man. How are you?
Good, man. Appreciate you guys having me.
Absolutely. Let's start just kind of looking back before looking at tonight's game. A&M, they know what they have to accomplish in this tournament this weekend. It's pretty much win the whole thing. So far, 2-0. What's kind of the vibe around the team and what's worked for them here in those first two games?
Well, through the first two games in Hoover, and really if you look at the majority of the season, A&M has pitched really well.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not an elite staff in terms of stuff like LSU is or Arkansas or even Georgia and Vanderbilt. But they've thrown the ball over the plate. Their defense against batted balls has been much better since it was to start the season. And so they've done a really nice job of kind of limiting crooked numbers. They have pitched well in high leverage situations. And so when you look at what A&M's done in Hoover, that's been the biggest story. They've gotten some big hits, some big home runs, but really the way they've thrown the baseball off the pitcher's mound, to me, has been the biggest story.
Should be Miles Patton tonight. Yes, I believe Michael Early did announce that. So LSU's seen him once. Of course, everyone's expecting Cade Anderson to go for LSU. Where do you kind of fall on that, Ryan? Because each team has seen the opposing pitcher. Is that advantage pitcher or advantage hitter in that situation?
Anytime you're throwing Cade Anderson, it's advantage whichever Cade Anderson. I don't know, man. Like, it'll be interesting to see kind of how each pitcher navigates this game compared to that the games they threw in College Station not too long ago. But no, man, and we got asked this morning if it's a benefit for A&M having played two games compared to LSU's coming in fresh. I don't know. I don't know how you kind of, in this point in the season, I don't know if there's an advantage either way, and especially again, like Cade Anderson, such a. You got me?
Oh yeah, I got you. You were saying Cade Anderson.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I thought I cut out. But yeah, anytime Cade Anderson throwing is a huge advantage to LSU. And so A&M's got their work cut out for them. He pitched very, very well in College Station, probably deserved to win that game against the Aggies, and he did it against a fully loaded A&M lineup. I say fully loaded, but had Caden Sorrell, had Jace Laviolette, obviously no Gavin Verhoeven, but he did it with two guys who will not be in the lineup tonight or for the foreseeable future for the Aggies. With just, I mean, they've been the architect of their own demise on some level with this season. But man, the injury luck for A&M has just been brutal all season long.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to come back. We'll come back to Sorrell and Laviolette, but it's crazy. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan. The hand injury to Sorrell happened the Thursday game against Georgia, and then in a week you lose Laviolette to, I mean, almost the same injury, another hand injury. So that's crazy to think about. A couple more on the pitching, just for a refresher. What can LSU expect to see from Miles Patton tonight?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of strikes, high pitch ability kid, good feel for the breaking ball and the change up. And then he wants to go to that heater in and heater up late in counts, especially to right-handed hitters. it's not all that dissimilar to Justin Lampton. In fact, they're different in stature and different in arm slot and release height and all that kind of stuff. But how they attack hitters with their arsenal is very similar from game 2 to game 3 for A&M. And Miles, he was going good against LSU, and it got sideways on him in one inning, kind of out of nowhere. But he's been rock solid for A&M in that game 3 role. And the Aggies have had their fair share of issues within the game of baseball this year, but pitching has really not been one of them. Just like every other team, they go through ups and downs with it. But for the vast majority of the season, Jason Kelly's pitching group has been really, really solid. And how many times do you ever see this in college baseball, regardless of the caliber of the team? A&M has had the same 3 starting rotation in the same order all season long. That never happened.
That is incredibly rare. I always say it, Ryan, as much as we always talk about you need 3 starters, it's so rare that a college baseball team actually ever has 3 starters, and you've seen plenty of success without. But that's crazy. This will be his 15th start, so 15 weeks, same 3. That's pretty awesome. Speaks to consistency of those 3 guys as well. Bullpen, where do the Aggies stand in the bullpen after 2 games in Hoover?
Yeah, I think the only guy that you may have questions about running out there today would be Weston Moss, who's been their best bullpen arm. He threw 34 pitches yesterday against Auburn, and that's typically not a number where you worry about a guy coming back the next day. But for you and your listeners that may not know, Weston Moss has been battling mono throughout the season. So he took a big dip in his overall stuff, and then the results kind of went along with that in about the middle of SEC play. But he had an outing against Texas where it was clearly he was not himself. And then kind of right after that, it comes out that, he's been really, really sick and was good in that weekend against LSU. But he's just, mono's not one of these deals like the common cold where once you get over it, you're back to healthy. This thing kind of lingers. And so I just wonder about his availability tonight after throwing 34 pitches yesterday. But outside of that, the Aggies should have every option available to them.
All right, let's switch over to the offense. And said we'd come back to Sorrell and Laviolette, so here we are. And it's not a question of their importance. We all understand their importance. They're 2 of the best hitters in college baseball. What I think everyone's more interested in is what path do the Aggies go to even attempt to replace that production in their lineup?
Well, you're going to see some guys that haven't played much, and Sawyer Farr is a true freshman. Who's an infielder by trade, that's had to go to the outfield with all the injuries. I would imagine he's going to start in left field. They'll move Terrence Kill II into center field, which he's had a sensational freshman year and looks like one of the bright young stars in the league. And then they're going to play Jamal George, who's a transfer utility player out of Alabama State. Can play infield, he catches, he plays some outfield, and that's just it's crazy to me that you sit there and we all do this heading into baseball seasons in January, and heading into February you start making lineups and potential defensive, what that could look like, the alignments, the substitutions. And I can tell you this, myself nor Mike Early anticipated having to start 2 true freshmen and a utility player in the SEC tournament against LSU with a chance to go to the semifinal and your season on the line. But that's where they're at.
Do you think they have to win the whole thing, or is getting to Sunday enough?
I would think getting to Sunday would be enough. And the funny thing is, we were talking about it on Texag's radio show this morning, is, the Missouri series is the killer, right?
Yeah.
And you can't just take it away, because it's a massive hole in your resume, and it will probably be the reason why. Not probably, if you don't make it the tournament, it'll be the reason why you don't make the tournament. But if you look at what A&M has done outside of that Missouri series, since they go to Knoxville, man, the resume is pretty good. You have a series win against LSU, Arkansas, and Tennessee. You drop the series against Texas, where all 3 games were within 1 run. You go to Georgia, and you're 1 swing away from winning the series against Georgia. Like, you've played like one of the top teams in the league, except for 1 weekend at home against the worst team, one of the worst SEC teams we've ever seen. And it's really hard to wrap your brain around what happened and what goes on within a clubhouse and a dugout for that weekend against Mizzou to happen. Because if it doesn't happen, A&M's comfortably in the tournament.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the stretch before Missouri, Tennessee, Arkansas, LSU, those series wins. I mean, I don't have to tell you, Ryan, 2 of them were on the road. I mean, going to Knoxville, going to Fayetteville, it's not easy places to play. They went in there, ruled the Vols. I mean, it looked like, okay, wait, there's the team we all expected. And then, I mean, just, yeah, three games in College Station against Mizzou, and it was gone like that. I have a couple more for you. Your time's appreciated. Ryan Brawninger, TexAgs. You can get him on Twitter X at @R_Brawninger. If there is a blueprint tonight for A&M to advance and knock LSU out, I mean, what is that given their current situation?
Well, the one thing I think is if you're going to be glass half full and look at the sunny side of this thing for A&M is that you're playing an LSU team that, just like Texas A&M, for large swaths of their offense, they like to hit the ball hard in the air. That's what A&M recruited to. Tennessee does it. Arkansas does it. You recruit that because your ballparks play that way for the majority of the spring. It's exactly how I would build a roster in college baseball. Build it out to benefit your home ballpark so that you can win enough that you never have to leave your home ballpark on your way to home. But what LSU does well doesn't play well typically at the Hoover Met. And we've seen it all week. It's like you've got to really kind of hammer it low and hard to the corner outfield spots to get it out of there. So A&M is playing without their premier power guys in Grahovic, Sorrell, and Laviolette. And they're playing in a yard, though, that it's a little bit negated where the big gap is now for LSU with, headlined by Bear Jones and the rest of the middle of that Tiger order. It's a little bit minimized, again, if you're looking through maroon-tinted glasses by the size of the ballpark and how it plays. So I think A&M, the path to victory tonight is going to have to look something like 4-3, 5-3 maybe if you're lucky against Kate Anderson. But that's kind of like the area you're looking at. A pathway to win to A&M is that Miles Patton pitches well and you hand it to a refreshed bullpen, and then you somehow, maybe somebody, you run into a 3-run homer like Caden Kent did yesterday, and that may be enough to stand up in that ballpark.
One more for you, Ryan, more big picture. Because, I mean, look, for us, outside looking in, it's easy for us to all speculate and looking at the season that A&M had. I mean, y'all over at TexAgs, y'all cover the program better and closer than anybody. What is kind of the vibe around Michael Early here year one with all the expectation that was there, how the season has gone, and it's either going to continue or end this week? Is he feeling pressure?
Yeah, I think the fan base is pretty split. As a matter of fact, our message board, there's, as such things happen, when somebody has a really staunch opinion, definitive opinion one way or the other, then it gets rebutted and talked about for days and days, and that's kind of what's going on in our world over here. But, like there, you see both sides of it. I'm of the opinion that he should get another year. Just the injuries, man. Like, take Derek Curiel, Bear Jones, and Monster Milam out of LSU's team, and what do you got?
I don't want to know. I don't want to know that life.
And that's, and then take out, because, people don't talk about it, but they also lost their closer. He threw one-third of an inning this year before he tears his ACL on the mound. And so take out the Cohen kid, too, on LSU's back end. So, like, there's not a team in college baseball that can withstand the injuries that A&M's face. And it's funny is if you go back the last 12 months, you're looking at Grahovic, Sorrell, Laviolette, and Braden Montgomery, all season-ending injuries. Those are 4 first-rounders. No doubt they're 4 first-rounders. So I think, if you hired Mike Early because you thought he was the next Tony Vitello or whoever you want to say, you thought he was a really good young coach, then I think you have to see that through if that was your thought process. Behind. Obviously, he's brought back a lot of the players, but if you think the guy's going to be a really good coach one day, I think he needs more than 12 months to prove it.
Well said. He is Ryan Brawninger, TexAgs.com, on Twitter X at @R_Brawninger. Ryan, appreciate the chat, man. Enjoyed it, and hopefully we can do it again soon. Enjoy the baseball and have a great Memorial Day weekend.
You as well, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. Again, that is Ryan Brawninger. This is the Hunt Palmer Show. Musso in for Hunt on Friday. We're presented by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. We're going to grab a break, come back on the other side, talk some LSU football. Is there one player being slept on a little much in your defensive backfield? We'll talk about that next here on the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
All right, welcome back in. Hunt Palmer Show here on a Friday. Musso filling in for Hunt. Hunt's back on Tuesday. Remember, we're all off on Monday. Well, except for Jimmy and Charles. But the rest of our lineup, we're off on Monday, back Tuesday. We're going to observe the Memorial Day holiday. So when we return, Hunt will be back in the chair as normal. When anyone talks about LSU football right now, heading into 2025, it carries a lot of expectation. And the reason for that is they completely revamped the roster. LSU has had a talent deficiency, specifically on defense, the last 2 seasons. And that's where, in signing this number 1 transfer portal class, you really saw them attack. Yes, you brought in some nice offensive weapons, Bowers, Sharp, Nick Anderson, Barry and Brown. Like, you brought in guys, a couple offensive linemen, but where you really saw them go hard was on defense, because that's where you lacked the most. You saw them bring in 3 awesome edge rushers, and then in the defensive backfield, they really took onus on that and revamped things. And it was easier because, specifically at safety, which we're really going to focus in on here, you were losing a lot. Major Burns was out of eligibility. Sage Ryan transferred. Kylan Jackson transferred. Like, a lot of your guys there, they were out. So you weren't returning a whole bunch anyway, so you needed to go do it. And you bring in Tamarcus Cooley, you bring in A.J. Halsey. We were talking with Preston Guy earlier. You even bring in a guy like Mansour Delane, who could play corner or safety. You bring in a lot of guys with a lot of versatility that can impact your team. And from a talent standpoint, immediately make you better and improve your roster. Like, that's been the whole conversation, and rightfully so. But there is one guy who I look at in the defensive backfield and specifically the safety position that I go, man, are we all kind of sleeping on him? And it's Deshaun Spears. Blake Baker was a guest on Off the Bench with Jacob Hester on, I guess that would have been Wednesday. And he was asked this question about younger guys who they really saw step up and kind of even become leaders and whatnot during spring and things of that nature. And he went through 4, and one of them was P.J. Woodland, and it was a quick blurb. The other, Devon Keys, just a quick, like, we're challenging him type deal. Gabe Relaford, he mentioned, and kind of went a little bit more in depth. But the longest part of that answer was about a minute long in total. The longest part of that answer was when he talked about Deshaun Spears.
Deshaun Spears, I've been very vocal about there was nobody harder on Deshaun Spears than me last year. And that's just because of the potential that young man has, and to see him starting to really break through this spring, not only from a tackling standpoint, a physical standpoint, his leadership out on the back end, he had a really outstanding spring.
Blake Baker there, no one was harder on him a year ago than he was. Talks about the improvements in tackling and all that, even the leadership. That's great. But the part of that is the potential. When he talks about the potential that Deshaun Spears has. It's easy when you bring in everything that you did to forget that you have a guy in Deshaun Spears who's 6'3", 205 pounds, was the number 3 safety in America coming out of Denham Springs in the class of 2024. Sitting there. And I'll give you a little bit more context on why, if you're looking at someone to potentially break in to that safety room this year, why it could be Deshaun Spears. He's got the experience. So we mentioned all the guys you lost. Even before that, when you looked at LSU safety room, Deshaun Spears a year ago played the 4th most snaps. You really settled into that rotation with Burns, Sage Ryan, and Jordan Gilbert. Like, you settled on those guys when you got into the meat of the SEC and you went forward. But there was Deshaun Spears right behind them at 205 defensive snaps. Over 300 if you count what he did on special teams in his first year. He played in 13 games for LSU a year ago. When you look outside of Jordan Gilbert of what you're returning, and yes, Joel Rogers had a great spring, really flashed. Javian Toviano, same deal. And without Jordan Gilbert there, they all got a lot of run. But when you look at those guys, the only one with the actual experience from a year ago is Deshaun Spears. Just looking at that, you would think, okay, yeah, it makes sense. He might be the next guy in line, and maybe he should be. Then you get into actual performance from Spears, and he graded out great as a run blocker per Pro Football Focus. But when you get just into grades as a whole, looking at LSU's safety room from a year ago, and you kind of just you take them all, you ignore the snap count, Deshaun Spears is your highest graded returning safety. Not Jordan Gilbert, not Javian Toviano, it's Deshaun Spears. The grade's not going to jump off the page at you. It's 61. It's not great. But the other guys that got some run, and I should preface with Jordan Gilbert, obviously he was playing through injury all of last year, so much so that he had an off-season procedure, and he's going to be back for camp. I had to get that right. He was playing through something that needed a procedure. But I think that speaks volumes. And again, you could say, okay, well, the performance on the field, what did it look like? And I think there's two different ways to look at it. You could see early in the season, Deshaun Spears played a lot against South Carolina, against UCLA, South Alabama, when they were still feeling it out. Remember how they worked with the safeties, right, with LSU? It was they rotated them all in to really see who they had, and they settled on their guys before SEC play started. So Spears got a lot of run in those games. I mean, he was playing 40, 50 snaps in those games. The grades weren't great. When you got later into the season and he started getting into some of those SEC games, two of his highest graded games this year are Nicholls, Texas A&M, and Alabama. So later in the year, when you continue to give him run, okay, and it limited snap counts. He played 13 snaps against Alabama. He played 8 against Texas A&M, and they were mainly in the run game. But the grade improved. And again, like I said, there's two ways you can look at it. You can look at it and be like, okay, yeah, well, when he played earlier in the year and actually got extended run, he wasn't very good. And that's true. And you could look at the other part and be like, yeah, when he played in those SEC games, it was probably those games kind of got out of hand. It was maybe just in mop-up duty. What's he really going against? That is one way to look at it. If you want to take more of a glass half full look at it, you could say, yeah, the grades weren't great early in the season when he played a bunch, but those were like the first 4 or 5 games of his college career. There's going to be an adjustment period there regardless of who you play. And then no matter what the role was, when he got in there against better competition, it did improve. That shows growth from the reps he was getting in practice and even in games going forward. That's more the glass half full look. The one thing I will say, though, is that guy's extremely talented. He's got immense untapped potential, so much so that as a true freshman, he played the 4th most defensive snaps on your team for a safety. And now you have that guy coming back and a defensive coordinator like Blake Baker who is excellent at putting his players in the positions they need to be successful. You've seen many players develop in his system when he's talking about how hard he is on that guy, how much he's challenging that guy because he knows how good he can be. And that's in May, before you even get through summer workouts and fall camp. Yeah, I look at Deshaun Spears as a guy who could potentially break into this room. Blake Baker wasn't done. He talked about, or I should say, Jacob Hester asked him, is the safety room the most wide open room on the field because of everything that you've added?
There's a great mix of old and young when you look at Jordan Gilbert. You look at A.J. Halsey, those two guys playing a lot of snaps. Then you got Toviano, who's kind of bounced around in the secondary, but I thought he had a really good spring. Deshaun Spears is a young guy Mansour can go back there. TaMarcus Cooley, he had a really good spring, who's a sophomore. So I think that room is really improved from a personnel standpoint here in the last 6 months, and I cannot wait to see them on the field.
And we talked about it earlier in the show. The depth of the safety room and your defensive back room as a whole. Like LSU has the ability to get multiple guys on the field at a time out of the guys they've brought in. And look, don't get me wrong. Like AJ Halsey's playing a huge role on this team. You bring him in, he is immediately the highest graded safety on your team. Immediately. Same with TaMarcus Cooley. Those two guys, they're going to play. Jordan Gilbert's going to play. But you played Deshaun Spears all over the field last year. At free, in the box, at slot. Like you played him everywhere to see kind of where he fit best. You know TaMarcus Cooley can play nickel. Like, you can maneuver things around and potentially find a way to get him on the field. And if he gets on the field and shows what he's built on, then there's no reason not to believe that by November or so, he hasn't potentially broken his way into this safety room and into the rotation and is playing meaningful reps for LSU. And I think that's honestly one of the best case scenarios for LSU, because that's an extremely talented guy with a lot of potential that can absolutely help you if the improvement takes and if he can bring that to the field. And I think he might just be flying under the radar a little bit too much because of everything that you've brought in and the talent that you've brought in. And I get it. But don't forget about the kid who was the number 3 safety in America, just sitting there, working hard and waiting for his opportunity. I think that opportunity comes at some point in 2025, and I can't wait to see if he takes advantage of it. Because what we all thought about Deshaun Spears when he signed with LSU, that he could be the next great safety, I think all that still holds true. We'll get our answer come fall in 2025. Tigers open the season, obviously, against Clemson on August the 30th. All right, we're going to grab a break. Come back on the other show. On the other side, final thoughts on LSU and Texas A&M at the Hoover Met. That's next on the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is the website. Every car that is on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. Safety, probably a big deal if you're in the market for a vehicle. If you go shop at Genesis of Baton Rouge, you will know that you're getting behind the wheel of one of the safest cars on the road, because every single model on the line, every single model was a IIHA top safety pick. Some of them were top safety picks plus. So from the entry level to the highest end, you're talking about a car that is among the safest on the road. It's a big, big deal. So you start there, then you go check out the style, the comfort, all those bells and whistles that come with a luxury brand of vehicle. That's all there for you at Genesis of Baton Rouge. And if you make a purchase, every single purchase comes with a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. Every single purchase comes with 3 years of complimentary valet maintenance. It's all there at Genesis of Baton Rouge. I invite you to go by and see them, airline at Pico across from Women's Hospital, or start your process today online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. GenesisofBatonRouge.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
LSU and Texas A&M from the Hoover Met tonight, 6:30 p.m. Central. Scheduled first pitch. LSU will open up their stay in Hoover at the SEC tournament. Of course, single elimination, winner go home. Plenty on the line for Texas A&M. LSU, they're looking to keep guys in routine, win, and go as far as they can, knowing that they have just about everything they need locked up for the NCAA tournament that will start next week on Friday, a week from today, as a matter of fact. Anytime you play a team a second go-round in a season, in any sport at any level, those teams are different the second time around. There's one instance where I think A&M is the same, because there's plenty that's different because of injury, because of what they have left from a pitching standpoint. But there's one instance where I think they are the same. When you look at when LSU went to College Station, where that A&M team was, they were super hot. They had belief that they were going to turn around from that awful start, the 1-8 start in conference play. They were going to make the NCAA tournament. They had already beaten Tennessee in a series. They had beaten Arkansas. And then LSU's coming in. You know what? They beat LSU too. Then the debacle against Missouri happens, and all of that just goes up in smoke. But now you look, they took a game off Georgia. They've won 2 games in the SEC tournament, and they just beat Auburn, and they've made it all the way to Friday. And there's probably a little bit of belief there. They're pitching well. So that makes A&M a dangerous team, is the belief. Now, there are just advantages that LSU has in this game that are inarguable. One of them is Cade Anderson going up against Texas A&M's number 3. And look, LSU's offense was not good in that series in College Station. They were bad, as a matter of fact. They scored 7 runs over the course of 3 games. I don't care who you're facing on the mound. That's just, in college baseball with metal bats and all of that's inexcusable. But the guy you had the most success against was Miles Patton. All 7 of the runs you scored came off the starting pitchers. 4 of them came off of Patton. But it was concentrated. You didn't just constantly have pressure on it. Texas A&M could get 6 innings out of Miles Patton again on Friday night. They're going to be ecstatic about that. I'm real curious to see what kind of adjustments LSU can make, because that's a guy who's going to be in the zone. Like sitting back, waiting, trying to run the pitch count up. It's not really the way against Miles Patton. And that's something that LSU loves to do. The guy has walked 16 and over 70 innings pitched this year. He's going to throw it over the plate, and you have to be ready to hit. You might not always be in an advantage count in this ballgame, just like you weren't in College Station. The one thing in common there is you're still away from home. We touched on this in the first segment. LSU, in 20 games away from Alex Box Stadium this year, has averaged 5.5 runs per game. You compare that to the 35 they played at home when they averaged 9 runs per game. The offense just hasn't traveled. Now, in your last 2 games against South Carolina, you scored 15 runs total. Can that travel over to Hoover? I think it's possible, but there's a few key things that need to happen. Number 1, let's see what Derek Coryell's got. Because starting in that A&M series is where you really saw the struggles for Coryell against left-handed pitchers ratchet up. He saw 3 lefty starters, and he saw a few out of the bullpen. He went 1 for 9 that weekend, and those troubles against lefties really followed him the rest of the season. He struggled against Arkansas's left-handed pitchers, struggled against South Carolina's, but the interesting thing was in game number 2 against the Gamecocks against Jake McCoy, he started to make hard contact. He only punched out once in 5 ABs, and the contact was loud, even against the lefty. And then the next day when he was facing righties, he mashed out 3 hits. Can the hard contact against Jake McCoy inspire some confidence against left-handed pitching? And let's see if Derek Coryell can't kind of refine the form he had when he was hitting 380 on the year heading into that series against Texas A&M. You don't hit 380 just off of righties for an entire season. Like, that's not your average. Like, he's had success. That needs to return because you need Derek Coryell to be the Derek Coryell he was for the first 2/3 of this year for you in the postseason. Of course, you want to see Stephen Milam break out. Absolutely. But I'm going to put that to the side, and I'm going to tell you need Jared Jones and Danny Dickinson to continue what they've done the last couple of weeks, specifically Dickinson. Danny Dickinson is your hottest hitter heading into the postseason right now. 7-game hitting streak. That's the longest one on the team. He's hitting 370 in that streak. He's mashed a couple homers. He has been just a menace at the plate. He's drawn so many walks as well. He's just getting on base. He's also got the longest on base streak currently on the team, 12 games. You need to see him continue to do that. Because what that's going to do is it's only going to elevate Jared Jones because Dickinson hits behind him in the lineup. He's the protector. And Dickinson just continuing that success over the weekend at South Carolina absolutely helped Jared Jones hit over 400 that weekend. And Jones came up with big swings in big moments of that series. And you need those two going at their height of their potential when you get into postseason play, which is here now, specifically the regionals. So can they continue to go in the SEC tournament the way they did down the stretch and carry that over? That's something I want to see tonight in the ballgame. And then there's Cade Anderson. And look, I wouldn't think Anderson's going to go past 90 pitches tonight. But if he's moving and efficient, you could get 15 outs on those 90 pitches. And that would leave you in a great spot. Because what it comes down to for me in this game is I don't know how A&M's going to score runs without Caden Sorrell and Jay Slavulette. When they had those two guys in the lineup against LSU, they went a combined 3 for 24. They got you in the 8th inning on Sunday. That stunk. You lost the series because of that. But you had chances well before that to win the series. You handled them fine. Great even. You had a great plan and you executed it perfectly. Now those guys are out of the lineup. And we were talking to Ryan Brawninger earlier, and he mentioned Sawyer Farr. Sawyer Farr is hitting 198 on the year. He mentioned Jamal George. Jamal George is hitting 238 on the season. That's what you're trying to replace Caden Sorrell and Jay Slavulette with. And you're going to be doing it against Cade Anderson, who might be the best pitcher in college baseball. Might be. I just don't know how A&M scores enough to win the ballgame. Cade Anderson threw 6 innings, a 1-run ball, and punched out 12 back in the first weekend of May in College Station. And again, that was with Sorrell and Laviolette in the lineup. You going to get 6 innings from Anderson? No. But you'll get something out of him. And he should have plenty of success. It's up to LSU to start fast offensively and then let your bullpen carry it the rest of the way home. The other thing I will say is I think LSU wins this ball game tonight. And here's one reason why. You think that team forgot what happened in College Station in the first week of May? Because I don't. LSU lost that series. Texas A&M did not win it. LSU lost it. Ryan Brawninger said the same thing when he was here earlier. That LSU felt like they probably should have won that game against A&M first game when Anderson pitched. You misplayed a couple balls in center field. You had a runner thrown out at the plate. All of those things. They lost. You were leading 4-2 in the 8th and had Cowan on the mound. Like, you couldn't have felt any better place. Jay Johnson's not going to say it. He's going to give you the whole 56-game playoff, take one game at a time, not using that as motivation, all of that. That's fine. I don't even know. He probably hadn't talked to the team about that. But you know what? He doesn't have to because they remember, and I think they absolutely want revenge over that team. So I think you're going to see a really motivated LSU team come out Friday night and play against Texas A&M, and I think they get the job done. They're fresher, they're healthier, and they're hungry too. LSU's hungry too. Make no mistake about it. So I think LSU gets the win. You're able to get Ianson a start. And as I said at the end of the show, excuse me, at the beginning of the show, and I'll say it again here at the end of the show, I don't really care what happens after Anthony Ianson exits the game on Saturday. After that, you get run ruled. I don't care. Pack your bags, come home. I just want those two guys to stay on normal rest and go through their routine and get their opportunity. And that's much harder to do now in a single elimination bracket. But I do like LSU to win the game tonight. Please tune into Musso at the Box after the game goes final. We'll have a post-game show, live reaction, take some questions, all of those things, set up whatever's next for LSU, whether it's a game Saturday against either Arkansas or Ole Miss, or whether we're looking forward to the selection show already. We'll do all of that tonight on Musso at the Box post-game. So please, if you would, tune in and subscribe. Let's grab a break, come back, close it out with some Take It or Leave It.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Vaughn and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. Whenever I say remodel, you might think, oh, that's a huge project, going to cost a fortune, going to take forever, have to leave my home. Well, that stuff can happen, but that's not really what we're talking about here. To further that point, let's just talk about something simple like a tub to shower conversion. That's not massively expensive. That's not super invasive. That's not super time consuming. It's a simple process that can be done if your bathtub is not used, if it's old and dingy, if it's not functional. You take that bathtub out, put in a glass walk-in shower. It changes the aesthetic, changes the functionality of your bathroom, adds value to your home. David Duvall and his team can help you with it every step of the way. They handle everything. You don't call him and then call the guy to handle this part, and this guy handles the floor. And one contractor, one call. It's One Bath and Closets. Find them online at onebathandclosets.com. Get that free consultation and get that process started today. It's One Bath and Closets. Find them online. onebathandclosets.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Final segment here on the Hunt Palmer Show as we send you off into Memorial Day weekend. Let's do it with some Take It or Leave It. Take it away, Jordan.
I'll take it.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Today's hottest stories in sports, news, and sometimes even Hunt's life. The question is, will he take them or leave them?
All right, Jordan, what we got?
All right, Moose, I got you right here. So let's start it off with everybody's favorite team, well, Hunt's favorite team, the Cincinnati Bengals. So the Cincinnati Bengals didn't want to give former Saint All-Pro defensive end Trey Hendrickson a new contract. So instead, what they did was they drafted his replacement with the 17th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft in Shamar Stewart, who currently is the only first-round pick who is still unsigned with a new contract. So, are the Bengals the cheapest organization in the NFL? Take it or leave it.
I don't know if they're the cheapest. I think I'll leave it. They're the cheapest because they did pay Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and I think that's the problem.
Yeah.
They paid their offense and neglected Trey Hendrickson, which is baffling because, I mean, their defense was the issue a year ago.
Without a doubt.
You got to kind of shore that up. The Shamar Stewart pick, I mean, I think they'll ultimately sign him. If he pans out, I don't really know. But that they're the cheapest, I'll leave that.
Okay. But I'm just getting at, you drafted the guy's replacement and still can't sign him? What's going on here? You know,
I mean, they'll get it done. I mean, he's out there at minicamp and OTAs.
He's
so
holding, which is
but they'll get it done.
Okay, so moving on. Boise State AD rips the college football bracket format after a rule change to the straight seeding. Jeremiah Dickey tweets, "Please call it the Boise State policy. Legacy is important. Who would make us feel better? When the system is created to keep you down, you fight like hell to break it. Nothing to lose, always what's next. Believe in epic, 1-0, hashtag bleed blue." Does Dickey have a reason to complain about the format change, basically saying that they're blackballing Boise State now?
No, he does not. He has no reason to complain. He's lucky they're in the playoff. They got a bye last year.
Yes.
What happened in the game?
Got killed.
They got run off the field.
Yes.
And he has no reason to complain. They didn't take your spot away. They took your bye away because you didn't deserve it in the first place. You got destroyed. Like every group, like Cincinnati did when they got put in a 14 playoff. They got destroyed.
Desmond Ridder.
That's what's going to happen in the group of five.
Yeah.
Just be glad you can be in the playoff. That's what you want. You want participation. You have participation. Suck it up.
I guess he just feels like, I don't know what he feels like, because everybody outside of Idaho knew Penn State was going to steamroll Boise State.
Yes, and they did.
And they did. Literally, they did. So, hey, man, he wants it to be the Boise State policy. I guess he's just one of those people that want to be etched in history.
Arizona State got a bye. They lost. You don't hear them complaining?
Don't hear them complaining at all. Everybody wants to be seen,
Fall in line, man. Fall in line.
So that's a little bit of take it or leave it for today.
All right. That's going to wrap up the show here just about as we send everybody off into Memorial Day weekend. Remember, we are also observing Memorial Day, so we are off on Monday. Jimmy and Charles are doing their show live at lunch from 11 to 1. Sorry, Jordan. But so they'll be on. But OTB, Hunt Palmer Show, AFR, we're all taking the day as well. Enjoy and observe. And, pay tribute to our servicemen and women who help us, be able to live these freedoms and have this 3-day weekend. So wish all of you, obviously, a happy and healthy and safe Memorial Day weekend. We're back here on Tuesday with our normal lineup. Jordan, thank you. Cassie, thank you. All of you listening, thank you as well. Enjoyed filling in. Always do. LSU and A&M tonight from the Hoover Met. Y'all enjoy the baseball and have a great Memorial Day weekend.
The Hunt Palmer Show.